Well, shalom. This is just a little bit of a morning experiment. What a joy it was yesterday to have the Shabbat with you. It was an amazing time of worship. The biblical Shabbats based on the Torah and based on the turn of the year, every 7 days after the turn of the year. It's so rewarding to be able to worship at the correct time and at the appointed time. What a blessing. And additionally, the things that we are now learning from the original Hebrew, from which 70 rabbis and perhaps other translators worked on in Alexandria, Egypt, circa 300 BCE, is fantastic. If you missed yesterday's awesome Shabbat instruction to us from the Heavenly King, I suggest you review it, and you will see some amazing things. You will see Psalm 110, at least part of it, that we began will continue next Shabbat. And I'll be doing these teachings on Shabbat only, which is what the Romans and the Jews call Wednesday. On midweek, Yom Shlishi, Saturday, we're going to be doing other teachings. So you have a nice variety, you have a nice mix. But I want to welcome you. Again, this is just an experiment. Every once in a while we'll come to you live and let you know we're on. So we talked about yesterday Isaiah 9:6 in the original Hebrew. And in these days, Acts 3:21 says that Yahuwah is restoring many, many things. And one of the things that Yahuwah is restoring is the true Shabbat based on the turn of the year and the first week. He's restoring the feasts. He's restoring the true names of Yahuwah and Yeshua. But there's something else that's being restored, and that is the recapturing of the Septuagint. Now, later on this afternoon, and also maybe in the upcoming weeks, the series we began, A Fresh Look at Adon Yeshua. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for each one of you to go to the YouTube channel. Look for Your Arms to Israel. Your Arms of Love to Israel. And you'll find our YouTube channel. And look at the teaching series. We began it yesterday, and it could be several parts, Yah willing. A fresh look at the Adon Yeshua. Because we get an entirely different look before the scriptures were tainted by the Catholics through the collection of Erasmus and the Textus Receptus and the rabbinic Talmudic compilation of different fragments by the Pharisees and scribes who later became the Masorites. Why work with all that when we have a manuscript that's 1,300 years later? And by the way, I'll be sharing, at the Dead Sea Scrolls we found copies of the Septuagint. Huge fragments, including many books, such as Maccabees, etc. But more than that, we have found ancient Septuagint manuscripts that were guarded by the Zadokites in Qumran. Okay, they were guarded. And we know these were the true priests that had fled the temple and taken their library with them when the lunar watchers and the Pharisees took over in the temple. And in the libraries at Qumran, we have the large parts of the LXX, the Septuagint, which I believe is a first-generation translation of the original autographs of the Hebrew Tanakh. And we found in Paleo-Hebrew the true names of Yahuwah, Yud, He, Vav, He. And I'll be sending out a link. I'll be sending out a link briefly. Okay? So you can look at it. You're going to see actual pictures of the inspired word of Yahuwah that is best preserved in what Christianity and the Hebrew roots movement has tossed away. And you'll see Yahuwah's name preserved in the Paleo-Hebrew in the original Septuagint. So The ones who translated the Hebrew into the Septuagint knew that it was their duty to preserve the true name, the sacred name of Yud-Hey, Vav-Hey. And what an awesome thing. And I look for that on my timeline. Okay, I'll send that out shortly. So we're learning such marvelous things. And the reason it's so important is part of the preparation of the bride of Yeshua, the Commonwealth of Israel, Judah and Joseph coming together, leaving all paganism behind. And I want to caution you as I close a few things. Don't fall for the lie that just because it's in Greek, that we who have escaped the church system and are into returning to our Israelite roots. Don't make the mistake to think, well, it's in Greek, so it's not for us. It can't be for... Just the opposite. The devil wants to send you to a Hebrew that's been 20% of it corrupted, to hide the true solar calendar, to hide Yeshua, to hide the true names, and to help you mispronounce words so you will not learn how to pronounce the true name and other issues. So the reason we fall at the mercy of the Greek is not because we want to have any kind of Greco-Roman lifestyle. No, we've left that lifestyle and that culture and we've returned to Torah. The reason is because that is the closest thing. It's one generation removed from the Hebrew that was written by Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and the prophets. Because if we don't accept the restoration of the Septuagint into our lives, then we're not following Yeshua or the apostles who relied on the Septuagint. And then we have no choice but to fall at the feet of the Masoretes, who give us a corrupted Hebrew. 80% of it matches the Dead Sea Scrolls. 20% of it is inaccurate. Designed to hide and obfuscate Yeshua. And then we go to that Hebrew, and that was compiled by the Masoretes between 700 and 1000 AD. And we have it's proven in history, because a man named Ginsburg examined some of the Masoretic fragments that were used. And in the margin it says, take this out, add this, add this. They found all the notes that the Masoretes had made in the margins of the fragments that they used to compile the Masoretic text, where it says, take this out, add this, take this out, add this. So I'm especially talking to my Messianic and Hebrew roots friends. It's very important that you don't get sucked into the lie that we're Hebrew roots, we're Israel, we're Torah observant, so we can't read the Greek. That's exactly where Satan wants you and I headed, where I was headed for a long time. Because this way we're going to rely on a translation that has been written to hide the Holy One of Israel, who came and died for our sins and rose the third day according to the Scriptures. So I am appealing to every one of you to be open, to become one of our students, to study with us. Go to YouTube, review part 1 that was done yesterday. And every Shabbat, which the Romans and the Jews call Wednesday, we will go over more and more and more jewels, treasures that I am recovering through the Septuagint, confirming in both the Greek and the English. Okay? And remember the importance of the LXX, meaning the 70. It's named after the 70, Roman numeral after the 70 translators, who were sent by the high priest in Jerusalem. And probably that high priest was still a Zadokite at that time, because that was probably right around the time, or just before the time, the Zadokites ran to the wilderness and took their library with them. Okay? So it was commissioned by the Zadokites, who commissioned, allegedly, according to the letter of Aristus. And even if that's a legend, it doesn't matter, because we examine the Brit Chadashah, the New Covenant, and it matches perfectly with the quotations from the Septuagint. You ever wonder why you read things in the New Testament? The prophecy was fulfilled, the prophecy was fulfilled, the prophecy was fulfilled. And then you go look it up in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, and nothing matches. Do you ever notice that? Nothing matches. And it's like, well, it says it was fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophet, but it doesn't match. The reason it doesn't match is because it doesn't match with the Masorite, but it does match the LXX. So, and I also want to encourage you, your picture might shake a little bit, but it's very important that you pick up a copy. Nah, I won't do it. Go to our bookstore, pick up a copy of the leather-bound polyglot. We already got our first order this morning from a brother, and I'm encouraging others to buy a copy, whether it's leather, hardcover, from our store, so, the ministry gets blessed. We can make a few shekels, but at the same time, you'll have it at your disposal. And you'll be recovering a text that was untainted by the redactors. And remember, we're trying to avoid two sets of redactors. The redactors that we're trying to avoid are the Talmudists, the scribes, the Talmudists who became the Masoretes, and also the Christian redactors, because there's stuff that the second and third generation Christians, somewhere between the apostles dying and the Council of Nicaea, okay? During those 200-300 years, where they added references to the Son of Yahuwah that were not there in the Septuagint. So the only way, I hope everyone that is into Torah, that is into Shabbat, that is into wearing tzitzit, all those things, I hope you're open and humble and willing to go on this journey with me, and it may take several weeks, Yah willing, the good Master willing. I do what I can. May He honor everything you and I learn and everything you and I do together. But I don't know about you, but if I can get a hold of a restoration copy that didn't add things about the Son, like I looked in the Septuagint, Psalm 2, verse 12, there's no Son. Now there is the Son of Yah, the King, mentioned in verse 7. But somebody added that same Son later on in verse 12. So we have two major traps to avoid. We have the Jewish trap and we have the Christian trap. That's why we are a remnant. Most people don't mind being in one of those two traps. That's all for today. And I'm just posting this as an experimental time. If I were to advertise that we would be on at a certain time, of course, you would be prepared instead of just getting a notice. This may be more effective than some other outreaches. So this is still experimental for two reasons. Facebook, number one, is experimental when it comes to going live. And number two, what's most effective in terms of quality and in terms of time. I see so far that this video is not upside down, so we made some progress. So review this video. If you just came onto the video toward the end, review it. Go back to the Yadi YouTube channel, please, and carefully review the entire teaching and message yesterday. And keep up with us through this series in the upcoming weeks and months ahead. So thank you so much. Please go ahead, review these tidbits. Give me some feedback. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Let me know if something like this would be easy for you to follow. Maybe, a couple times a week as the Ruach leads. Maybe if it would be better if we had a set time so you can tell friends. Maybe this is a little bit better for you than the Uber conference. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, this is still experimental technology. But please go to the bookstore and get your copy, your hard copy. PDFs are nice, but the hard copy has both the Renewed Covenant and the Tanakh. And it has the oldest text, one generation removed from the Hebrew, that Yeshua used, that the apostles used, and that has escaped the corruption of both houses, of the rabbinate as well as the second and third generation Christians who wanted to embellish the truth. Whereas the first generations that were taught by Yeshua himself, the 12 Shlichim, they didn't embellish it. They guarded the truth and proclaimed it. Shalom, shalom.